evening. Welcome to Arlington Candidates Night for the town election, which will be held on Saturday, March 28th, 2026. Candidates Night is jointly sponsored by Envision Arlington and the League of Women Voters of Arlington. Tonight's program is being broadcast by Arlington Community Media, Inc., also known as ACMi. We'd like to thank ACMi's Executive Director, Norm McLeod, its Operations Manager, Jeff Monroe, the Government and Programming Coordinator, Sean Keene, and the rest of the staff and volunteers at ACMi for broadcasting tonight's event. This event will also be rebroadcast on ACMi's government channels. That is Comcast Channel 22, RCN Channel 15, and RCN's High Definition Channel 614, as well as Verizon Channel 26, ACMi's Facebook page, and its YouTube channel. For those who are watching later, it is now 8 o'clock on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026, and this forum is being presented in person at Arlington Town Hall. My name is Pamela Meister. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Arlington. It is my pleasure to introduce Candidates Night, which presents candidates for local office. Candidates Night is a nonpartisan service providing information to the voters. Membership in the League of Women Voters of Arlington is open to people of all genders. Throughout its 106-year history, the League has built a nationally respected reputation for providing candidate forums and debates for the benefit of voters and for supporting informed participation and understanding of government and major policy issues. Based on grassroots membership input, the League also seeks to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters takes on specific issues that we've studied, but we never support or oppose candidates. If you are interested in building civic participation with the League, please sign up at our website, lwva.com. Tonight's program will include statements from candidates as well as a question and answer period. Residents of Arlington have submitted questions in advance of this meeting. These questions were reviewed by a committee of League and Envision Arlington members to represent the issues of concern to the audience. The moderator will be the one who presents the questions to the candidates. I'm asking you to all make sure your cell phones are off, and in courtesy to all candidates, please hold your applause until the end of all candidates' presentations for each office. I'd now like to introduce our guest moderator, Margaret Copey, and she is with the League of Women Voters of Lexington. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Pamela. It's a pleasure to be back in Arlington. Thank you for attending and watching. First, I'd like to outline the procedure and rules for this evening. The candidates for town offices will appear in this order this evening: Assessor, Select Board, and School Committee. Each candidate will make an introductory statement with 2 minutes allowed. The candidates will speak in the order in which they appear on the ballot. After the candidates have finished their statements, we will have questions and answers. As mentioned before, questions have been submitted in advance. All candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question for their office. The candidate with second placement on the ballot will be the first to answer the first question, and we will continue. I have to turn the page here. We will continue to rotate through the ballot order for each question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. After the questions and answers, each candidate may make a 1-minute closing statement. The candidates will speak in reverse ballot order for the closing statements. To ensure fairness, each candidate will have a time warning from the league timers in the first row. And would you hold up your cards so that everybody knows where you are and what the cards look like? When 20 seconds remain, the timer will hold up a yellow card. When the time is up, a red card will be raised. At that point, the candidate should only finish a short sentence and stop. We ask for the cooperation of all candidates in following these rules so that everyone will have a fair chance. There is one seat for Housing Authority for a 5-year term. There are 2 candidates, Nicholas Metropoulos and Jacob Henry Deck. The LWVA has a policy for many years that if a race is contested, at least 2 candidates for the office must be present at a candidates' night forum. Mr. Metropoulos is unable to attend tonight's event. Accordingly, there will be no forum this evening for the board of the Arlington Housing Authority. Mr. Deck is present in the audience and available to answer questions after this event. Thank you. Thank you. I was just going to ask you to do that. Please stand up and people can talk to you afterwards. There. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. As a reminder, because this program is carried live and will be rebroadcast, we ask the candidates to speak clearly into the microphones to be heard. Due to the allocated cable TV broadcast time, we will conclude the program at 9:30 p.m. and there will be no intermission. Now we will first hear from the candidate for assessor. There is 1 seat open for a 3-year term. The candidate is Mary Wynn Stanley O'Connor. The Board of Assessors is composed of 3 members. The mission of the Board of Assessors is to assess all property in the town of Arlington in a fair, equitable, and consistent manner in accordance with the laws, rules, and regulations of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the requirements and guidelines of the Department of Revenue. The Board of Assessors holds hearings with residents on questions of property valuations, personal property, motor vehicle excise taxes, and exemptions for aged or handicapped residents and veterans. When the inspector of buildings grants a permit for new property, additions or alterations, the assessor then makes an individual inspection to determine the assessment. At the close of town meeting, the assessors determine the tax rate subject to the approval by the state tax commissioner. We will now hear an opening statement from the candidate. Ms. O'Connor, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I am a long-time resident of Arlington, a graduate of Arlington High School, and an attorney. I've served on the Board of Assessors for a number of years, and it's my privilege to be able to serve again. I view my service as my public service in town. We have a very good, strong Board of Assessors. Members, Bill Zagata, who's an appraiser, Gordon Jameson, who many of you know. But I'd like to use my 2 minutes to talk about something of importance to seniors, because there will be people that will be tuning in. I'd like to talk about Chapter 41A, the senior tax deferral. Many seniors are not aware of this. There are a number of deferrals available, and you can go on the assessor's website to see them. But the senior tax deferral is probably very important, particularly in light of the upcoming override. A senior, 65 or over, may defer all of their real estate taxes on certain criteria. They have to have annual income of less than $109,000 a year. They have to have lived in Massachusetts for 10 years. They have to have lived in their home in Arlington for 5 years. And they are able to defer their taxes until they either sell the house or pass away, and then it has to be paid within a certain period of time. Now, that deferral is not conditioned on whether the person has other assets. There is interest that is charged for the deferral. I think it's 5.5% at this point. But we don't get many requests for deferral. Many of my parents' generation worked hard so that they could pass down to their children something to inherit. But for seniors who are struggling, this is a perfect way of easing up some of their cash burden here. You can only defer up to 50% of the value of your home, And if you have a mortgage or a reverse mortgage, your lender has to agree to the deferral.
Thank you. First question, Ms. O'Connor. Please describe how a homeowner can appeal an assessment perceived as incorrect.
You have to file a request for an abatement by, I believe it's February 1st, after the December tax bills come out. You have to provide us with information. You can't just say, I think my assessment is incorrect. You have to give us comparable values in the neighborhood or a appraisal or something along those lines. Or you have to show us that we have incorrect information on your property record card.
Thank you. Next question, and I think this follows on your opening statements, by the way. What opportunities for tax relief are available to homeowners with limited incomes?
Well, it's primarily seniors. And you know that was passed a senior means tax exemption that it takes off after the senior circuit breaker, which is on your Massachusetts state return. That doesn't give much relief. So the better way for seniors to go is a deferral. There are other things such as veterans, widows of police and firemen killed in the line of duty. There are at least 10 or 12 deferrals.
Thank you. The next question. What impact has the adoption of accessory dwelling units had on surrounding properties and on the town?
It doesn't really impact surrounding properties. It impacts the value of the home that adds the accessory dwelling unit. We have not had that many so far, but it goes to the fair market value of the property where it's added.
Thank you. We'll now go to your closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Well, thank you all for giving me this opportunity to serve again. If you have any concerns or questions or need additional information about your tax bills or abatements or deferrals or exemptions, please call the assessor's office. The employees there are most helpful. And thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Will the candidates for Select Board please come to the stage? Ms. O'Connor, her name thing. Can you grab her name thing? Hi. Thank you. We will now hear from the candidates for Select Board. There are 2 seats open for 3-year terms. The 2 candidates are Joseph A. Solomon and Diane Mahan. The 5 members of the Select Board serve 3-year overlapping terms. They act as the town's executive branch to formulate town policy, ensure compliance with state laws, and administer many town meeting decisions. The board appoints the town manager to be the professional manager of town services and departments, except for the schools. The Select Board members also serve as the Board of Public Works and the Board of Survey, compile the warrant, grant licenses and permits, appoint election officials, review budgets, and settle claims against the town. The members announce all elections, attend hearings and other town functions, and deal with traffic and safety matters. We will now hear opening statements from the candidates in the order in which they appear on the ballot. The first candidate is Mr. Solomon. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you to Envision Arlington, the League of Women Voters, and ACMi. I'm Joe Solomon, and I'm a candidate for Select Board. I'm incredibly proud to call Arlington home. I grew up here and went through the public school system. And when my wife and I started a family, we came back because this is where we wanted to raise our kids. We live in Arlington Heights, and when we moved back, we actually built an accessory dwelling unit for my mother on our property, and recently helped my mother-in-law move into a multifamily building over on Pleasant Street so that we could have our whole family here in town. Over the past several years, I've learned more and more about how Arlington works through volunteering my time. I served 2 years as president of the Dallin PTO. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 16, and I'm vice chair of the Capital Planning Committee for the town of Arlington. Beyond my elected and appointed roles, I've also worked with neighbors on issues in our community. A few years ago, after a close friend of our family was hit crossing Park Ave, I went out and worked with over 1,000 of my neighbors to identify the issue, bring it to the Select Board, and get the process started on making improvements. That experience meant a lot to me because it showed what's possible when residents engage seriously with their neighbors and with the town government. For my professional life, I bring more than 20 years of experience solving big operational problems in federal and state government. And in my work, especially in those government roles, I've always measured my success on whether my decisions delivered tangible results for the people who are impacted by them. And that's what I'll do as a member of the Select Board. The issues that motivate me are pretty simple. Our schools are the foundation of this community and deserve strong support. I believe the town needs to provide more housing options. And when we consider development in Arlington, we should be open to thoughtful growth that enhances the community for everybody. So in closing, I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve on the Select Board and will be equally grateful to earn your vote on Election Day.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Ms. Mahan, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, League of Women Voters and Envision Arlington and ACMi. I'm Diane Mahan. I'm a candidate for re-election. Moved here when I was 4, Hardy School, Junior High East, also now known as the Gibbs, Arlington High School, and my day job is I'm a professional court reporter. I've also had the privilege of working for you, the residents of Arlington, as a select board member and a town meeting member, Precinct 14. I'm proud of my record in service and just as excited as I was when I was a first-time candidate, way back when. Arlington is a great community due to the involvement of our citizens and our commitment to continue to grow and adapt with the issues before us. I have been told one of my best qualities as a select board member is to really take time to listen to all of our residents and keep an open mind to finding solutions. As we all know, Arlington is facing an override to keep pace with the rising costs of inflation and the services we've all come to rely on, and what makes Arlington a great community to live, work, and raise a family. I hope you will join with me and others to vote to protect those services and to keep the hard-won improvements we have gained over the past decade. The town has restored and stabilized essential services. Police and fire staffing have been rebuilt to provide reliable emergency response and to promote community safety. Our libraries serve residents at one of the highest circulation rates in the state. Senior transportation and health services support our most vulnerable neighbors. The Department of Public Works maintains town infrastructure and helps keep us safe. I have worked with others through periods of challenge and recovery, and one lesson stands out. When a community delays making hard choices, the consequences last for years. Town and school leaders have implemented cost control measures and reductions, and we are and will continue to look for efficiencies in the years ahead. We are not asking for this override casually, but with caution and care and after a thorough and public decision-making process. So I respectfully, along with Joe, ask for one of your 2 votes to Arlington Select Board, as well as your yes vote on the override to protect the services, workforce, and infrastructure that our community has built together. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the first question, and we'll start with Ms. Mahan. If meaningful budget cuts were required of the town, what would be the top 3 areas for which you would support reductions? Ms. Mahan, you have 1 minute.
Having served on the Long Range Planning Committee, and when we originally came in with the budget deficit of $21.5 million and made the budget cuts to get it down to 14.8, and going through that deliberative process helped make some of the cuts that we've made to get down to the $14.8 million override. But we do recognize March 29th, we still have to look for efficiencies and cost-saving measures. I have had many conversations, not only with my colleagues on the board, but also with the town manager and with the chair of the finance committee and my colleagues on the school committee about my ideas of where cuts should be looked at. But ultimately, and I don't mean to pass the buck or anything like that, the decisions will be up to our school superintendent and our town manager. And they're going to be very difficult because we've already made a lot of cuts and reductions. We know we have to make more regardless of March 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
If meaningful budget cuts were required of the town, what would be the top 3 areas for which you would support reductions? You have 1 minute.
Yeah. First of all, I think unfortunately because of the size of the school budget, I think there would need to be some cuts there, but those have been identified by the superintendent and a couple other areas that I think are, impactful is to look at our road budget, which is almost $2 million per year, and some of our vehicle costs, which, you know, an individual vehicle is a relatively low cost, but the fleet of cars that we have is hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, and the more that we can stretch that, the more we can make some reductions.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with you, Mr. Solomon. Please describe the actions you will take to plan for reducing or eliminating the town's budget deficit so that another override is not needed in 3 years.
It's a trick question.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I think, you know, thinking about that really as a budget exercise may be a little bit misleading. Where we are today is the result of a few factors that are a little bit outside of our control. There is Prop 2.5, and in Arlington, where most of our revenue is coming from property, and we're restricted in raising revenue from it, we have this structural deficit. Beyond that, the state has reduced I know the acronym is UGA, but Unrestricted Governmental General Aid. I think many communities, including the Mass Municipal Association, are advocating to have that reversed so that more aid comes from the state to us. And, you know, I think looking at budget problems as only cuts is not necessarily the right framing. I would look to more increased revenue sources.
Thank you. Ms. Mahan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Please describe the actions you will take to plan for reducing or eliminating the town's budget deficit so that another override is not needed in 3 years. You have 1 minute.
Well, I certainly would give my opinion very strongly to keep in place the, except for when mandated by state law, the hiring freeze that both the superintendent and the town manager have put in place. While that's not something you want to do for moving forward and adapting and changing services, that's something that I would definitely advocate for, as well as regionalization, which I know we've been working on all various, whether it's equipment purchases, whether it's maintenance, whether it's around our public safety, our flooding, and other issues. And the other is state aid, working with our legislators around the cost of healthcare, around the funding that we get under Chapter 70 for our schools, Chapter 90 for our roadways. I'd like to say I'd look to the federal government for additional funding, but that would not be earnest in terms of anything being successful. But also bearing in mind, I don't want to look for any solution that carries on to the back of our town employees, like the recent GIC decision that thankfully wasn't voted on, that would have transferred those costs to our employees who some are, in my opinion, very underpaid. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question will be starting with you, Ms. Mahan. What is your plan for getting positive action from the MWRA, the cities of Cambridge and Somerville, and the state to stop dumping sewage into Alewife Brook?
I call this my Schitt's Creek answer. As someone who's been working on this with many, many other people for many years, there just was a meeting today with the new mayor of Somerville, Jake Wilson. Number one thing is making sure Arlington does everything we can to enforce the court order that tells the MWRA they can no longer be dumping sewage and violating the Clean Water Act, a Class B waterway for the Alewife, but also for the Mystic and the Charles River. And we've been working, and we now have union groups coming on, the plumbers with gray water. We have the Charles River Watershed Association, Mystic River Watershed Association. And I really feel where to win this is keeping the MWRA, who is responsible for this, who is given the variances, with them promising that they asked for more time to clean up, to do what they should do under the court order, that they have to do that. They can't turn around now and say, well, we're going to do something different.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What is your plan for getting positive action from the MWRA, the cities of Cambridge and Somerville, and the state to stop dumping sewage into Alewife Brook? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, and I will be very happy to have Diane's expertise on the select board. But also, I think there's a few things here. One is to keep attention on this. There are groups in Arlington. My mother actually counts fish online for another
Yes,
group
that's
that's,
coming
yeah,
up.
yeah.
The herring.
To make sure that this is an issue that's ahead of everybody, right? And beyond that, to actually figure out, aside from whatever legal pressure there is on the issue, to actually look in the budget of the MWRA and identify for them, like, this is where the opportunity is for you to deliver this to our community.
Thank you. And the next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Solomon. What action should the town take to align our DEI policies and initiatives with recent changes in federal policy? You have 1 minute.
It's a trick question. I don't think we should align our DEI policies with federal policies. Yes. What makes any location great, and especially what makes Arlington great, is the people that live there. And Arlington is already an incredibly diverse and welcoming community, and we made it that way. So the things that we've done are the things that we should continue to do. And we're in this scenario where we're dealing with a bully, and when you have that kind of a person pushing you, you do what you want to do. You push back and you say, no, I'm gonna make Arlington in the vision that I have for Arlington. And I think the Arlington we have today is amazing, and I think all policies should be put in place and strengthened to make sure that that's what we have in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Mahan, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, this one I can answer. Thanks to Joe. I'm going to say ditto to what Joe said. And what I would do concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion is what Arlington is doing, and not what the federal government has done. And working with our new DEI coordinator, boy, there's that Boston accent, Ramshab Bailoch, as well as working with her counterpart on the school side to continue to identify the communities that are best served with our diversity, equity, and inclusion mission statements that the board has adopted, that the town meeting or through the school committee, school side has adopted. And I think one of the things we are doing but need to work on, especially since we lost a position that was funded by opera and that money's gone away, and because of budget cuts, we had to let that person go because that's what we said, we would not be carrying positions. We need to continue to do, I think there's a lot more outreach that needs to be done to the people that we want to serve with those policies. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the last question before we go to closing statements. And this one will start with you, Ms. Mahan. Arlington has addressed operational carbon in buildings and construction projects. What is Arlington's plan to reduce embodied carbon in state-managed construction projects, for example, any planned renovation of the Addison Middle School?
Thank you. One of the great things that we have going for us is our town manager, Jim Feeney, who has worked his way through the town, through facilities, he's a craftsman by trade. He's just an electrician, but having him there with the expertise and then having our permanent town building committee, as well as some expertise from the capital planning committee and our net zero committee, they've really kept us on the forefront of improvements that we can make, not just to save money and energy costs, but to commit to the plan that we've made for our children and grandchildren moving forward with our buildings and with our infrastructure, and especially with my colleagues on the school committee and superintendent have gone above and beyond with knowing what we need to have for projects to get them to the Mass School Building Association, get them considered right away, get them approved, and that's what I'd look towards. Sorry. Stop.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, would you like me to repeat the question? Arlington has addressed operational carbon in buildings and construction projects. What is Arlington's plan to reduce embodied carbon in state-managed construction projects, for example, any planned renovation of the Addison Middle School?
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a few things there. So specific to the Addison, we can make choices about the design, the materials that we use. And I think, with the new high school, we did a great job being environmentally conscious with how we designed that and made sure that it was funded in a way that aligned with our values. With regards to, more broad town-wide issues, we can adopt new building codes that can enforce and require some of these choices about embodied carbon to be considered when making design choices. One of the concerns I think that may come up around that is potential additional cost. We have an amazing staff in town with people who are incredibly knowledgeable about how to get grants and rebates and to inform residents about how to get grants and rebates. So as we move forward on that, I would expect they could provide that information to help us chart a path forward.
Thank you. We will now hear closing statements from the candidates for Select Board in reverse battle order. You each have 1 minute to speak, and we start with Ms. Mahan.
Thank you. That went fast. Thanks for listening to Joe and I here tonight, and I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes for continue to serve on your select board. But just as importantly, I'm asking you for your yes vote on the override. A failed override would mean reduced library hours and the likely closure of the Fox Library. Senior transportation would be scaled back significantly, resulting in 1,000 fewer rides each year, including trips to pharmacies, Arlington Eats, and grocery stores. The fire and police departments would face reductions in force, leading to longer response times. The schools would lay off teachers, social workers, and other staff, leaving our students in larger classrooms with less support. I know from experience that fiscal instability makes it harder to attract and retain the skilled employees who deliver our services every day. Once that capacity is lost, rebuilding it is far more difficult than maintaining it. Local government works when all of us have a direct voice in those decisions. So again, I respectfully ask for your vote for Select Board as well as for your vote yes on the override. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahan. Mr. Solomon.
Yes, so thank you, Margaret. Thank you to Envision Arlington, the League of Women Voters, and to ACMi again. And thank you for everyone joining us in person and online tonight. Oh, sorry. I want to echo Ms. Mahan's point about supporting the override. I think it's critical. For my view on Capital Planning Committee, we pushed really hard to try to get the numbers down as much as we could. The number that's before the voters is a reasonable number. There's a lot of rigor that's been put into it. And, not to repeat what Diane said, a lot of the services that we depend on are depending on passing that. In terms of who I am and as a candidate on the select board, I look forward to listening to everybody's voice and making sure that the things that we decide to do as a town are the things that you can actually go out and see and experience and feel. I don't want it to just be policy. I want people to feel the impact. So again, I'm a yes vote on the override, and I respectfully ask for your vote in the election on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidates for school committee, will you please come to the stage?
I think, why don't we do Exton, Schlickman in the middle?
Exton, Schlickman, Gittleson.
Yep.
Is
Is this the right order?
No, yeah.
Yes, no? You said-
Exton?
Oh, no.
Oh, were you told something different?
Yeah, you tell me where to go. Exton's at this end.
Okay. We have so many of you today.
I know.
Hi,
So
Paul.
Exton, Schlickman,
Schlickman.
sorry. Do it that way.
And Gittleson. Thank you.
They just want it, what's on the ballot.
Thank you. Now we will hear from the candidates for school committee. As you can see, we have quite a group up here today. There are 3 seats open, each for a 3-year term, and then 1 seat open for a 1-year term. And please note that when you go to vote on your ballots, you will be voting separately for the 3-year term and for the 1-year term. There are 3 candidates for 3-year terms: Elizabeth Exton, Paul Schlickman, and Laura B. Gittleson. There are 3 candidates for the one-year term: Dmitry Masurio-Vasiliev, Crystal Haynes Copathorn, and Sean Berry. The 7 members of the school committee serve 3-year overlapping terms. They set policies for Arlington's public school system and appoint staff to implement these under the state laws and the policies of the State Department of Education, Elementary and Secondary Education. The committee appoints a superintendent as chief administrator of the school department to make recommendations on personnel and programs. The school committee is responsible for the school department's annual budget and represents the town in collective bargaining with the teachers. We will now hear opening statements from the candidates in the order in which they appear on the ballot. The first candidate for a 3-year position is Ms. Exton. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Envision Arlington for hosting this conversation, and to ACMi for the broadcast. I'm running for re-election for a 3-year seat on the school committee because I want to continue my contribution to the ongoing efforts to improve our schools. Public schools are in a cycle of continuous improvement. Our strategic plan set a 5-year roadmap for improving the experiences and academic outcomes in our schools. We are currently in year 3 of that plan. I want to support the superintendent and the district in accomplishing its goals. In 2023, I committed to a number of initiatives I wanted to address during my 2nd term. I committed to improving 2-way communication throughout the district. When data showed that participation in school committee chats was declining near 0, this community relations subcommittee, chaired by my esteemed colleague Laura Gittleson, adjusted its approach, and the superintendent held 23 listening sessions over 6 weeks, including one with CPAC and one with METCO, to engage stakeholders about their experiences with Arlington Public Schools. I committed to submitting a statement of interest to the MSBA for the Ottoson Middle School, and in December, Arlington was invited into the eligibility period. In my next term, I commit to working with the town to fulfill the eligibility period requirements and complete a feasibility study. Finally, I committed to competitive teacher pay. We successfully bargained new contracts with our teacher and paraprofessional units, including increasing compensation and improved benefits such as parental leave packages to better compete with neighboring communities. Our teacher retention rate is the highest it's been since the implementation of the strategic plan. I am proud to be a member of the Arlington School Committee, and I want to continue to serve our community in this capacity. I respectfully ask for your vote on Saturday, March 28th.
Thank you, Ms. Exton. The second candidate for a 3-year position is Mr. Schlickman. Mr. Schlickman, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Paul Schlickman, and I'm here to ask for your vote for school committee in the annual town election, Saturday, March 28th. I have 37 years' experience as a teacher, central office administrator, and principal. I served 4 years on the Minuteman School Committee and 20 years on the Arlington School Committee. Arlington is delivering high-quality education for a per pupil cost that is $1,300 less than the state average. So if we're doing such a good job and we're doing it at a frugal cost, why do we need such a large override? Simple. Our taxing authority is significantly below the cost of maintaining level services. Let's look at some of the numbers. Massachusetts calculates a foundation budget for every school district in the state. Next year, our foundation budget increases 4.9%. The governor's budget calls for a 2.2% increase in Chapter 70 state aid for Arlington schools. And Proposition 2.5 limits increases in our levy limit to 2.5%, an arbitrary number set by a ballot question in 1980. So the state says the cost of running our schools is increasing at almost 5%. We see the cost of maintaining current services increasing between 4.5 and 5%. The override on the ballot will provide for a 4% increase for our schools over the next 3 years. Even with a successful override, we will need to make significant cuts every year for the next 3 years. If the override fails, school and town-side cuts will be devastating. That's why I ask for your support of the schools and town by voting yes on the override. I also ask for your vote and your support as we face the challenging years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlickman. The third candidate for a 3-year position is Ms. Gittleson. Ms. Gittleson, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, Envision Arlington, and ACMi for making this all possible. And thank you to everyone taking the time to learn more about the candidates. For the past 3 years, I've had the privilege of serving on the Arlington School Committee and helping make policy and budget decisions that affect every student in this district. That experience has given me a deep appreciation for both the importance and the complexity of that work. Much of our recent work has focused on implementing Arlington's strategic plan, making sure our policies and budgets are really supporting strong schools for every student. That's meant investing in professional development so students can see themselves in the curriculum, working to recruit and retain a more diverse group of educators, and making sure every student gets the support they need. We have made real progress, but there is still important work to do, especially when it comes to closing achievement gaps and building trust with families who haven't always felt heard or included. Right now, those responsibilities are especially challenging. Arlington has made important investments in our schools, including working to make teacher compensation more competitive so we can attract and retain outstanding educators. At the same time, it is clear how difficult the financial picture is for our town and our schools. As we look ahead to the March 28th override vote, I am hopeful that Arlington residents will join us, Liz and Paul and I, in choosing to support our town and our schools. But regardless of the outcome, the school committee will face difficult decisions. In moments like this, experience and a deep understanding of how our schools actually operate become even more important. It's with this in mind that I ask for one of your 3 votes for the 3-year position for the Arlington School Committee on March 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giselson. The first candidate for the 1-year position is Mr. Vasiliev. Mr. Vasiliev, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Dmitry.
I'm sorry, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Dmitry. I'm a data scientist, pedagogue, engineer, and a father of 3 kids here in Arlington. I'm here to make the school committee more proactive and in tune with children's needs by bringing voices of students into the school committee. As you can see, we all here are grown-ups, and we probably forgot about how we were children. And voters are also grown-ups, and children don't vote. And this is a structural gap. And we cannot serve children without acutely, empathetically, and proactively listen to kids, to their needs, and let them lead us where they want to be. To address this, I want our committee to listen proactively and ask them, how are you really doing? And listen acutely. For that, I'd like to implement short surveys for all children after each course, asking briefly, how was it? Was it overwhelming? Was it too easy, too fast? In addition, we need to ask our children, in general, what the priorities of our schools should be. It's also important to implement exit surveys for families who withdraw children from our schools, asking where our schools failed them. It's an important source of feedback. Second, my plan is to improve the academic standards in elementary and middle schools, starting with math. Current math curriculum, called Turk Investigations, is deficient on almost all metrics as determined by the Massachusetts Department of Education. I'm here to help with choosing and transition to a better math curriculum. Third, I'll continue advocating to provide healthy challenge for all kids. If a child wants a more difficult course, we should accommodate it. Academic boredom is bad. It contributes to the current mental health crisis because lack of good dopamine makes kids turn to bad dopamine, such as disruptive behavior and addiction to screens. We need to allow flexible pathways that would provide just the right level of healthy challenge for kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vasiliev. The second candidate for the 1-year position is Ms. Copethorne. Ms. Copethorne, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Crystal Haynes Copethorne. I'm a nonprofit leader, a veteran journalist, a college professor, a proud mom, and spy ponder. You know, as a professor, I see firsthand how the foundation we build in our public schools shape who these kids become. Education has shaped my life in profound ways. Having access to a gifted program actually helped lift me out of poverty. It is why I believe that education is both a ladder and a mirror a ladder that creates opportunity, and a mirror that reflects who we are as a community. The district is deeply personal for my family. 5 generations have gone to APS. My husband's a public school teacher. Our family has a long history of public service. Our schools are strong, but we are facing some real challenges and leaving kids behind. Rising student anxiety, gaps in bullying reporting, disproportionate discipline practices, concerns around special education compliance, and a multi-million-dollar budget shortfall after warnings. These issues affect real families, and they require thoughtful, accountable leadership. My approach is grounded in 3 principles. First is equity and excellence, because achievement rises when students feel seen, valued, and supported. Solutions should be felt across the district, not working in silos alone, because different students have different needs. Second, representation strengthens leadership. Diverse voices build trust and lead to better decision-making. Through my leadership work at the Arlington Human Rights Commission, the MLK community, the community conversations during COVID, Black Lives Matter, and the rising anti-Asian and anti-Semitic incidents, I have successfully worked to bring our community together and make our values visible. Strong schools require smart stewardship. I have experience managing complex budgets, leading large initiatives, and building public and private partnerships at the State House and right here in town. I respect the leadership and I thank you for their work, but this moment requires us to have new perspectives and lived experiences in an integrated table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Copethorne. Now, the third candidate for the one-year position is Ms. Berry. Ms. Berry, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Sean Berry. As a parent of a 2nd and 6th grader here in Arlington, I see the success of our schools every day, but I also see where we need to improve. I'm running for the school committee because I have the professional experiences and relevant insights into how Arlington and APS operate to make the most of this unique one-year term. With a graduate degree in urban education, I believe social justice begins in the classroom and that a quality education is a civil right. This belief was the foundation of nearly a decade of teaching and working as a middle school math instructional coach in the Cambridge Public Schools. I bring the ability to decipher, synthesize, and probe educational data. With training in the Harvard's DataWise process, I can help the committee identify and correct for inherent bias. Here in Arlington, I've led the Bracket PTO, serve on town meeting, and I'm a graduate of the amazing Arlington Civic Academy. This is also the 2nd time I've stepped up as a precinct captain for the budget override campaign. Over the years, I've served as a contributor in numerous APS working groups. I've helped draft the goals of the 5-year strategic plan. During the APS equity audit, I helped turn staff feedback into actionable recommendations on how the district could improve professional development, addressing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Right now, I'm working on the Math Pathways Task Force to improve opportunities in math for all students. We've dug deep into the research and district data to make sure these recommendations are considered and impactful. APS and the school committee have a massive year ahead. We're renegotiating the Unit A union contract. To keep the talented staff our kids depend on, we have to get these negotiations right. If the override fails, we will need to steward our school communities through significant cuts. I'm eager to continue collaborating with students, families, teachers, administrators, and school committee members to maintain the best of APS while making necessary improvements.
Thank you. The first question, and we'll be starting with you, Mr. Schlickman. If meaningful budget cuts were required at Arlington schools, what would be the top 3 areas for which you would support reductions? And you have 1 minute.
Well, the budget cuts that we're going to have to do, even with a successful override, we're going to need cuts to get under the 4% cap. But this is a partnership, and we listen to the principals, the parents, the teachers, the school community before we make any kind of cut. So we've got a lot of recommendations before we go forward. But the first thing at the top of my head would be looking at student assignments, expanding buffer zones, and trying to make our student assignment process, particularly for the elementary schools, a little more efficient. It's by definition inefficient to run 7 elementary schools because shifts in enrollment across the town can change class sizes and require differences in staffing. So we can't evenly distribute students around the school, the system. Trying to find more efficient ways to possibly pair schools or adjust student assignment would be my first look.
Thank you. Ms. Gittleson, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. So for those of us up here who are current school committee members, it's pretty clear what budget cuts I hate to use the word support, but the budget cuts that we have voted on should the override on March 28th pass. Some of those will be even more trimmed administration, which means less responsive times to families' needs, a reinstatement of athletic fees and elementary music fees, and cutting coaches and department heads, subject area coaches like math and literacy, who have been so important to the successes that we've had over the last several years. So I can't say I support any of those cuts, but part of the job of the school committee is to make really difficult decisions. And we've spent the last 6 months looking deeply at this budget and figuring out where we will cut if we have to.
Thank you. Mr. Vasiliev, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. Yes, I join Mr. Schickman and Ms. Gittleson in that it is a very hard question. And my understanding is that right now we're talking about just continuing the same level of service, and for that we need an override. So the cuts are, we'll need to hear, as Mr. Schickman mentioned, principals, parents, teachers, but I also want voice of children. And this is important. And I will make sure that this voice needs to be heard because children are the recipient of the services. And based on that, we need to have priorities, where these cuts can happen, such as, and I would prioritize administration, non-student facing roles, and if needed, expanding class sizes.
Thank you. Ms. Copethorne, would you like me to repeat it?
It's Copethorne.
It's what?
Copethorne.
Copethorne.
C-O-P.
Thank you.
Yeah, got it. So essentially what I would say is no student-facing roles. I think we're going to have to absolutely trim down our central office administrators and looking at those reductions. But I'm from Emerson College and have something of a theater background, and I'm a yes and person. And so I have seen where other districts have faced override, bringing in public and private partnership, nonprofit community schools models where you have a coordinator bringing in funds. Just recently I saw it in East Boston where one community schools coordinator brought in $3 million worth of private partnerships into the schools. So I think that what we need to do is think of this as a yes and. Yes, we may need to do away with we may have to institute athletic fees, we may have to do central office reductions, but we'll also need to start thinking more innovatively, bringing in the expertise of the folks here in town, bringing in programs, making sure our grant process is more robust and more aggressive so that we can fill these gaps and kids don't feel the loss.
Thank you. Ms. Berry, you have 1 minute.
Great, thank you. It's so exciting to be up here on the stage with so many people who are invested in our schools and that we have all of us here running and wanting to contribute. I just want to honor all of that, that I respect each of you. Again, I think I echo everything that the rest of the candidates have expressed. We want to maintain our student-facing positions. We know that 95% of our school budget is salaries, and a significant amount of that are our teachers and our service providers. So we want to make sure that we're not reducing any of those positions. I have the professional experience to comb through and understand where we invest our money and where it yields the best outcomes for our students. So I hope to continue to bring that to our conversation. And again, I'm a yes voter. I think that our school committee has done a great job trying to reduce the amount of effects to our students if the override does not pass, but I have been out there canvassing, talking with constituents, and encouraging everyone to vote yes, so we don't have to make any more
Thank you.
cuts.
Ms. Exton, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. As my colleagues currently on the school committee with me have already said, the school committee went through a very thorough process starting back in October, where the superintendent engaged with administrators, principals, curriculum directors to get information about where they could make cuts, where there could be reductions that would have the least amount of impact on students. And I believe that the budget that the superintendent brought to us last week was a product of those conversations. And so our role on the school committee is to ask the difficult questions and see where the superintendent can go back and make adjustments, where there are places where we can find some dollars. As my colleagues have also mentioned, there are, in a failed override, there are places where things are going to be cut. Athletic fees will need to come back, instrumental music fees will need to come back. But I think it's also important to mention that non-student facing roles cannot be stripped down completely because teachers need those people to support them in doing their jobs.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll be starting with you, Ms. Gittleson, with this one. To decrease a budget deficit, would you support any programs being administered as enterprise funds? These are funds where fees are paid by the user of the service. Please describe your reasons. Ms. Gittleson.
So, I mean, this is what we've talked about at length in the school committee over the last several months, and it's something that I have asked the school committee and the superintendent to look at as we face cuts going forward. I know this is something that Mr. Schlichtman and I disagree about, but I think we need good data to understand what the effect of eliminating fees has been. I don't want fees to be a barrier to anybody to do these important extracurricular and curricular activities. Some of the things we charge fees for already are things that happen during the school day. But I want to have the data to see who is benefiting and who would lose if we get rid of it, and how we can create a new system that is as equitable as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Vasiliev, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. To decrease a budget deficit, would you support any programs being administered as enterprise funds? Those are funds where fees are paid by the user of the service. Please describe your reasons.
Yes, I really did research this, and I need to do my research. And as a data scientist, I would dive deep into this, but I know that it's a difficult question.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Copperthorne?
So I would agree with Ms. Gittleson on this. I think that we need to have the data to support whether or not this is going to be feasible, and also making sure that we have pathways to equity to make sure that people who can pay do, and people who cannot pay, that there's a sliding scale and some supports around that. So, but I think a lot of people already pay for rec league sports. I think a lot of folks already pay for curricular activities in Arlington already. And so I think to add an additional fee, while it's not ideal when we're talking about that or cutting a literacy coach, I think that the answer is clear there.
Thank you. Ms. Berry?
I agree. I think that curricular supplements like instrumental music that we have inside of the instructional day is not something that I want to encourage us to implement fees on. That is something that we are a robust program that many of our students throughout our elementary schools participate in, and I think that we should maintain that as a non-fee option. But when we look at cut sports at the high school, that's a limited number of students who are participating, and they're old enough that they can get out there and fundraise. And I would encourage us that as an opportunity to look there, as Crystal said as well. They're doing it already in competitive sports. I want us to recognize that we are already doing this inside of the curriculum when we are relying on PTOs to fund enrichments in our classrooms and all field trips. And so we are relying on students and families to subsidize at that point. And it raises an equity issue when we have across schools, when our PTOs are working in different budgets, and that can increase. I just want to finish the sentence. we're having an inequity around the amount of field trips and the kind of field trips that can be offered depending on how the community is able to fund those.
Thank you. Ms. Exton?
Thank you. So a number of years ago, the superintendent was able to eliminate athletic fees and instrumental music fees for all students to provide unlimited participation, and cost was not a barrier. I think in the financial situation that we were in at that time, that was absolutely the right decision. I think that we are in a different situation now, and so I think considering bringing back athletic fees or instrumental music fees is certainly something that the community and the school committee need to have a conversation about, and getting feedback around that. I think specifically athletic fees, which I would consider as an extracurricular activity, a limited number of students can participate in them, would be a priority for me for requesting fees over something like instrumental music, which I would consider a curricular activity that happens during the school day and does not limit the amount of students who can participate.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman?
If we're talking about enterprise funds, there's one area that we should really look at is in terms of our building rental program. Because we have a new facility right now, we have opportunities to rent buildings, fields, and if we do this a little more aggressively and do that with appropriate fee levels for rentals, we can offset a bunch of stuff within the custodial and the maintenance of the schools. However, if you're talking about things like athletic fees, children in poverty will get a zero fee. Children from wealthy families, the check will be no problem. Somewheres in the middle is that struggling middle-class family where they're going to say, well, we really can't do this. We're really balancing the budget inequitably on the backs of a subset of families in the district, which is why I'm very skeptical and almost flat out opposed to restoring fees.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question, and we'll be starting with you, Mr. Vasiliev, on this one. Concerns have been raised about a lack of transparency and the absence of channels for two-way communication with the school committee. Would you support an ombudsperson to address this perception? And if not, what suggestions do you have?
Yes, on this topic, I would say yes, and I would, why am I running is that we need to have these channels and we need to have them open wide, to be proactive, to actually reaching out to students and also anybody who can provide us with feedback, but essentially students, because we need to know where they are and we need to meet them where they are. So it is, and the channels, there is no structurally, there is no structural sort of feedback set up in this process, is that we are accountable as politicians to our voters, and children don't vote. So this is why this is happening, and we need to accommodate for that. We need to basically, I'm trying to make effectively this feedback which is lacking.
Thank you. Ms. Copperthorne?
Will you repeat the question?
I was just going to ask if you wanted me to, yeah. Concerns have been raised about a lack of transparency and the absence of channels for two-way communication with the school committee. Would you support an ombudsperson to address this perception? And if not, what suggestions do you have?
Sure. I mean, I think that's one way to go. I think also having something like a diversity council directly connected to the school board also helps, because when you have that barrier of someone who's working to make sure that their DE&I is part of everything that we do, I think that it allows for trust and it allows for folks to be able to report those bullying incidents that go unreported in the district, to feel safe in a space that's meant to make their families feel safe as well. Because as we see, like what we're doing right now doesn't work. Black and Latino students right now face in-school suspension at a rate of 14 times higher than their white counterparts. We know that the dropout rate among Black and Latino students are 10 times higher, and we're seeing disparate rates on MCAS scores and other supports there. And so I think if we have this ombudsperson, great. If we have a council directly connected to the school board, is also might be better. In fact, it will be better, because I think that way you have folks that you can go and report these incidents in a safe space, and you know that action will be done.
Thank you. Ms. Berry, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I'm fine. I do think that's a viable option. Families must be the district's strongest allies and champions, and we know from even just the CPAC survey from last year that families want better two-way communications. I think there are more opportunities structurally within our school committee. We can look at newsletters and other opportunities, and I think we need to get more information from families and students about how they, want to get information. I think it's hard to sift through a lot of the information online and watch long meetings on ACMi, which we love, but it's difficult for people. So A, how they want to get information, but B, how they want to be a part of the conversation, and we need to be engaged in that. And when we are talking about instances where there is a conflict, I think having some kind of mediator or structures built within the district to address those, whether it be disciplinary issues or compliance issues, and I know we have them legally, but I think that there's a lack of trust with families about being responsive to the school committee, and we need to correct that.
Thank you. Ms. Exton, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm all set. Thank you. Within the 6 years that I've been on the committee, the school committee held a number of school committee chats where we opened up a listening session for community members. And what we found was that as those went on, attendance and participation decreased to nearly zero. And so we needed to make some adjustments. We did ask the superintendent to do some listening sessions, and she offered 12 listening sessions, which then actually led to 23 listening sessions. And I understand the question is about the school committee, but when we get feedback from the community, we need to bring that feedback to the superintendent, because she is the operational leader of our schools, and she is the one who can implement the changes. And so the feedback not only needs to come to the school committee, but it does need to come to the superintendent so that we can work together to implement the changes and feedback that we're getting from the community.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman?
First of all, the idea of adding an ombudsman at a time when we're cutting budgets just doesn't make any sense. The school committee is a policy board. We do not get involved with the day-to-day operations of the district. We should have more dialogue. We have liaisons with the PTOs, and if they invite us to come to talk at a PTO meeting, this is a great way to talk to parents. But I would really implore parents who have questions or issues or compliments about what's going on within their school to start with their teacher, to work their way up to their principal, and work their way up through the administration, because those are the folks who have actual day-to-day operations ability to make changes in the way we're doing business. If it is a policy or a structural issue that we really need to look at as a committee, I think that the members of this committee are very accessible, and we welcome the opportunity to sit down and talk.
Thank you, Mr. Schlickman. Ms. Gittleson?
Yeah, so I want to echo what Ms. Exton and Mr. Schlickman said. I think that sometimes there are some misperceptions of what we as individual school committee members can get done. And so we hear from our constituents all the time. I've talked to people on the phone, I've met them in person, I've had Zoom calls, and we've had these more formal, structured public community chats that Ms. Exton was talking about. This winter, the superintendent had, I think, 23 listening sessions over a 6-week period, and she reported back to the Community Relations Committee, which I am the chair of, and it prompted a lot of good discussion and ideas for doing more of that. But like Ms. Exton and Mr. Schlickman said, the communication has to go through the schools to solve the actual individual problems. Policy issues are where the school committee can act.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, and we'll be starting with Ms. Copperthorne on this one. Do you believe that the school committee should develop policies surrounding the use of artificial intelligence in schools? What opportunities should parents have to weigh in?
Absolutely. I think AI is something that we can't deny is happening, especially on the university level. I have to deal with it all the time with my students, and I think we need to have a robust policy and a robust policy around AI, and also teach students as part of a media literacy campaign program curriculum to make sure that they understand the dangers of AI, because this will be part of their world. As digital natives, it is already part of their world. And so I think we need to do both things, but absolutely, I think an AI policy is necessary at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Berry?
Great. This is absolutely one of my campaign priorities because we know that AI is transforming teaching and learning in real time. And unfortunately, we don't know what best practices are, right? As an educational practitioner, we always look to research, we look to best practices, but this is happening in real time. I had an opportunity to speak with expert and a fellow Arlington resident, Justin Reich, around this issue. He's an expert in AI in education. That's exactly what he said, that policies need to be in conjunction with teachers and students in having the conversation about what's working, what's not, to make sure the digital literacy remains robust, that we're able to decipher it. But we also can't ignore that it is a reality that is happening to our students. But I think this is a great opportunity for the district to follow through with promises of looking at project-based learning, which I think which is a better opportunity to uncover and deeper understanding of students and to develop that deeper understanding and critical thinking, which are the skills that we're really needing to improve.
Thank you. Ms. Exton?
Generative AI is here, and we need to help teachers and students learn how to work with it and understand it. The Mass DESE guidance on generative AI recommends embedding AI literacy into the school curriculum. It also encourages districts to focus on data privacy, ethical use, and bias reduction. We need to be asking questions like, when do we use AI and when should we not use it? Teachers need to be clear with students about when they can use it and when they can't. The issues of bias and critical thinking are major ones, and APS's focus on deeper learning gives students an opportunity to develop these critical thinking skills. We need to provide professional development for teachers. However, there are not yet widely accepted best practices. There needs to be trust for teachers to make choices. There are some very effective ways teachers can use AI to differentiate instruction and modify lessons to appeal to students' interests. AI is evolving in real time, and we need to be flexible in any type of policy setting.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman?
I think that one of the issues we have in education is whenever something threatening or new comes about, we try to pretend it doesn't exist and isolate it from the schools. We can't do that. I don't know where we're going with AI as a technology. I don't think any of us really do. We don't have the crystal balls. So we have to be nimble in terms of our response, in terms of teaching both our students and our professional staff the advantages and the limitations and the ethical use of AI, and update that on an annual basis as the technology changes.
Thank you. Ms. Gittleson?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you believe that the school committee should develop policies surrounding the use of artificial intelligence in schools, and what opportunities should parents have to weigh in?
So policy moves really slowly, and AI does not. And so I actually don't think that the school committee policy subcommittee, which Mr. Schlickman chairs, all due respect, I don't think it can move fast enough to do this work in a nimble way.
Agreed.
That what we need to do, how we need to help educate our teachers and students. So what I think the role of the school committee is to ask the hard questions, to support the programs and initiatives that we need in the schools, that our educators, who are the experts on education, tell us they need to navigate this really difficult issue. But No, I would take some convincing for me to believe that we actually could craft a policy that was meaningful.
Thank you. Mr. Vasiliev.
Thank you. I have an opinion that this is not an earth-shattering technology as it is. It is right now real acute on the tip of our tongues, but at the end of the day, what we have in education, math, it's not invalidated. It's still important, absolutely. And there is no, I object to statement that if AI can do math, we don't. Absolutely not. And AI actually can make mistakes in math, which is embarrassing, only says that we humans, we need to understand it. We need to be educated, and the bar for education is high. We need to know how to use it properly, to check the results, and AI sometimes can help, and it needs adoption, but I do not think it's some greatest breakthrough which need us to really change our course.
Thank you. We'll have one more question now before we go to closing statements, and this question will be starting with Ms. Berry. The Massachusetts legislature is considering bell-to-bell, phone-free school policies, which is a stricter level of enforcement than what Arlington schools currently have in place. Would you support a policy that conforms with phones being inaccessible from bell to bell for all grade levels? Why or why not? Ms. Berry.
This is a great question, and I think it's nice to follow on the heels of the AI and how technology is affecting our students' experiences. I think that we have seen an uptick in use in our young people, and especially at the high school level. I think bell-to-bell policies in K-8 absolutely make sense. I think that's developmentally appropriate that we do not have our students have access to their cell phones during that. In high school, it's a little bit different. I think that there's a logistical question and hurdle around what does that look like? Is there instructional time that is being sacrificed for monitoring? Are we checking things in? Are we checking it out? And students and family have concerns around safety and being able to communicate with their families in a timely manner. And we know that we rely on that technology to do that. So I know that there is also concerns around culture around the cafeteria tables and how that has changed because students have their cell phones out. So I think that we can support better communication and activities for students during the lunch hour to foster that, but removing the cell phones may not be the best answer.
Thank you. Ms. Exton, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm okay, thanks. I think that we need to teach our students and young people how to moderate their use of cell phones. I think that teachers have been more consistent in implementing the rules and expectations of phones at Arlington High School and at the Gibbs and Audison, in my personal experience, have maintained the expectation this school year for having phones off and away during the school day. I think that products like Yonder pouches that seal them away, I think that they're expensive. We're in a situation right now where I'm not sure that's a wise use of money. They're difficult to manage for 1,600 high schoolers coming in the morning and putting them away and then giving them back to students at the end of the day or having them unlock them at the end of the day. So I think that we need to listen to teachers and students about how cell phone use is going in the schools before we make some kind of decision to implement a bell-to-bell policy.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thanks. Oh, I hate state mandates, and I think this is an inappropriate use of the legislature. The decision for cell phone use and cell phone policies needs to come from the teachers in the school, what makes sense for how they're doing instruction, and then make sure that we then craft a policy based on what the teachers are asking for, then insist that the teachers and administrators enforce the policy that we put forward. That's the way to handle cell phones, not with state legislation.
Thank you. Ms. Gittleson?
I agree with what both Ms. Exton and Mr. Schlichtman have said. I think if the state if the legislature decides to do this, I surely hope that they attach some funding to it, because they're not giving us enough money now, and so we definitely don't have enough money to manage 1,600 students and where we're going to put their cell phones during the day. So I think that's what's most important, is that we use this as a moment of education, like Ms. Exton said. This, like AI, is a reality in our kids' lives that wasn't a reality for many of us, most of us. And they need to learn how to use the technology responsibly. And by just taking it away from them, I don't actually think that that's going to be the best way. And I think this is a decision that has to be made at the teacher and school level.
Thank you. Mr. Vasiliev?
So I think that it's important to actually educate parents about ramifications of what children how to handle their cell phones. And book Untangled is a good resource, but also it's, so as about the using them as schools, I think that they should be away during during the classes, because it's disruptive. Students can use it during the breaks. That said, it's I'm grateful to my kids that they use flip phones if they use voluntarily, so they do not have smartphones, and because social media makes changes, and the research doesn't show a good influence of that.
Thank you. Ms. Copperthorne?
Yeah, I think if whatever we decide to do, and I think parents' voice should absolutely be at the center of that. I do think we need to make sure that school-to-school communication is intact. I had a parent tell me there was an wait till 8 pledge, and then when she called her kid on the district phone or the school phone, the receptionist said, "Why don't they have a cell phone?" So I think that we need to make sure that we have a district-wide communications policy no matter what, so that if students their phones are off and away, they're taken away, that you can still communicate with your kids, and that there are norms and practices within those. I also think, kids also have to get used to not using their phones. I can tell you I covered an entire federal trial. At federal court, they take your phones away. And I had to cover an entire federal trial at the time without use of my cell phone. So I think that there's a balance here, but we absolutely have to make sure that the structures are in place, that no matter what, whether it's a state mandate or a school-centered mandate, that there is a district-wide communication that makes it possible and feasible.
Thank you. And we will now move to closing statements. They will be in reverse ballot order, beginning with the candidates for the one-year position. You each have 1 minute, and we'll start with Ms. Berry.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, Envision Arlington, ACMi, my fellow candidates, and all of you here this evening. I have a proven track record of working in Arlington to improve outcomes for all our students. Serving on the school committee is the culmination of this work, not the beginning. We believe that APS is doing well, but we must continue to hold ourselves accountable to closing persistent achievement gaps. With my professional experience and history of serving Arlington and APS, I'm ready to get this work get to work that started on day one. I'm Sean Berry, and I'm honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Copperthorne.
Arlington schools are strong because this community cares deeply about its children. This moment calls for innovative and diverse leadership that ensures that every child, regardless of race, ability, faith, or background, feels safe, valued, and has what they need to succeed and thrive. I don't want to leave any kid behind. The work cannot be symbolic. It must be actionable. And progress cannot be made in silos. We've done that before. It does not work. We can be ambitious and accountable. We can protect academic excellence and student wellness. We can plan responsibly for enrollment growth, and we can strengthen communication and trust when systems fall short. I bring executive leadership experience, successful community organizing right here in town, and the perspective of a 5-generation family right here at APS. I'm ready to serve Arlington and help guide our schools forward. Education is a ladder and a mirror. This moment requires families to vote for the APS, for the kids they want in the future, and how they want our district and our town to be represented outside of our community.
Thank you. Mr. Vasiliev.
Thank you for the League of Women Voters, ACMi, and all candidates for productive discussion. And also thank you to my wife and my children for supporting me who are here. I hope that I managed to highlight how important it is to put children's vision and needs front and center in the school committee, how important it is to genuinely listen to our kids and provide them adequate level of challenge. My favorite quote is by European educator Johann Pestalozzi. Without love, neither the physical nor the intellectual powers will develop naturally. It resonates with me because the way I see it, there is no way to factor out or replace kindness from education. No laws, no policies, no numbers or guidelines can replace genuine care for kids' well-being. I'm asking you could trust me to be a voice for your kids, for the school committee, and I hope for your vote on March 28th.
Thank you. Ms. Gittleson?
Serving on the Arlington School Committee for the last 3 years has been an incredible privilege. I care deeply about our schools as a parent, as a member of this community, and because my own kids are growing up in Arlington schools, this work is personal to me. Arlington schools are a big part of what makes this town such a special place to live, but strong schools do not happen by accident. They require thoughtful decisions, responsible budgeting, and a real commitment to making sure every student has the opportunity to succeed. We know there's still important work ahead, continuing to implement the strategic plan, supporting our educators, closing achievement gaps, and building trust with families who haven't always felt heard or included. As we face some difficult decisions in the months ahead, experience and a clear understanding of how our schools actually work will matter. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, but I know we have a lot more to do. And to help us do that, I'm asking you to vote yes on the override on March 28th.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman?
Thank you. When your budget doesn't fund enough firefighters to staff your stations 24/7, you get a brownout. That's when a station closes for a shift because you are understaffed. When I worked in Lowell, they prioritized a low tax rate. They employed brownouts as a strategy to reduce the fire budget. And it was heartbreaking to see not one but 2 fatal fires around the corner from a browned out fire station. I don't want that for Arlington. This override isn't just about the tax rate. It's about the value we get from our taxes. It's about schools that add value to your property. Charlie Lyons once said the room that adds the most value to your home is the nearest classroom. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, ACMi, and Vision Arlington for this opportunity to be with you this evening. Please vote yes on the override and support me on Saturday, March 28th.
Thank you. Ms. Exton?
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and my fellow candidates for a great discussion. I hope you heard tonight how complex the work of the school committee is and what I bring to the committee. In closing, I want to remind you of my priorities. First, I want to support the culmination of our 5-year strategic plan and the drafting and implementation of the next one. Second, I want to work with the town, district, and MSBA on the feasibility study for the Ottoson Middle School. Our middle schoolers deserve a 21st century learning environment. Finally, I want to support the district in managing the fiscal challenges and realities that are to come. I want to support contract negotiations and make fiscally responsible choices that support students and teachers. I hope you will join me in voting yes on the override. It has been my privilege to serve on the school committee for the last 3 years, and I look forward to serving this community for another 3 years. I ask for one of your 3 votes on March 28th.
Thank you. And I think we could give them a round of applause. I would like to thank the candidates for running for office and for adhering to the timing, schedule, and format. Pamela Meister will now close the program. Pamela?
Transfer of the microphone. It's my only Olympic baton I'll ever get. Thank you very much, Margaret Copey, for acting as our moderator. We are always lucky to have you. Thank you again to all the candidates for participating tonight. I want to thank our viewing audience, as well as Arlington Community Media for broadcasting this. If you are interested in the activities of either Envision Arlington or the League of Women Voters of Arlington, you can get information on our respective websites. In addition, there is a government primer, I think is how it's pronounced, that was compiled from 6 Citizen Corner articles published in the Arlington Advocate. That primer is available through the town's website. Candidates Night has been broadcast live and in person starting at 8 p.m. on March 18th, 2026. If you are interested in rebroadcast information, please visit acmi.tv. To all voters here tonight and throughout the town, please remember to vote on Saturday, March 28th, 2026. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you for coming tonight and for watching. This forum has been sponsored by Envision Arlington and the League of Women Voters of Arlington. Good night.